And hello again. This is going to be the last clip that we look at in the remove module for the time being. So let's start this. We're going to go into our advanced remove seagull remove clean plate. Frame range 0 to 95. I need my frame offset here to be at 0. This is going to be really important for this particular clip. Simply because of naming conventions that were used further down the line, and I'll talk about those in a moment. So frame rate 25 frames a second, pixel aspect ratio HD, no fields. Okay, so let's take a look at the shot. Alright, so what is it we want to remove? Well, we're going to take away this seagull here and give us some better views out into the distance. Now, of course, this is nowhere near as simple as it might first seem, even though it doesn't seem particularly simple to begin with. So let's start and try and break this down. So the first thing we need is our background that we're going to replace, and of course what we're going to add is some more sky. So let's try and find a good place to track the sky. I'm going to just take this around about here, and let's just add a couple of points to that actually while I think about it. There we go, just to give us a nice bit of data. Luminance, not so much. I'm going to try auto channel here to see if one of the color channels can give us a better result. Motion, that's just going to be translation, scale and rotation. Large motion, yes. Everything else set to normal. So let's just give this a name, Sky Track. Now let's remember we always start at the back and work our way forwards. So let's create a new layer here and let's look at our shot again. Well, I can tell this railing is going to be an issue. So let's track the railing. We'll find a good area there to be able to track the railing. And for the pre-processing, luminance 90% fine. Shear I'm going to leave turned on because there is a little bit of perspective stuff going on in there, so we're going to leave shear turned on. Large motion, yes. So railings track, and now let's come to our star here, which is going to be the seagull. Now we are going to want to take away the seagull and its reflection here, but remember this is all about the track to begin with, not about the shape. So let's just get a good shape to track first, and then we can worry about the rest of it later. Let's get rid of those. There we go. Cool, and this we'll leave this as the default stuff as well. Seagull track. Cool, so I've got my let's have a look at all the mats. So I've got my 3 different mats there. Let's give all these some nice new colours. Okay, and let's just track that forwards. And I'm just going to stop it there. You can track the rest of the shot yourself, but this should be good enough for our purposes. Alright, so what do we want to do now? Well, obviously if we went to the remove tab now and tried to remove our seagull here, nothing would get removed because our background clips here, our background shapes, aren't actually covering the area of the seagull. So let's change all that up. Okay, so I'm going to go and click on my Uber keyframe here. What this does is affect all of the keyframes across the entire timeline. So I can come here and define my shape a lot better using the original track shape. Let's just take a look at that. See, and that's fine. That's covering the area that we need to cover, no problems whatsoever. Same with the railings track. Let's come over here and let's just extend the railings out here. Turn the tracking off on all of these and come down here. Now with this, when we're working with multiple planes in the background, we actually do need to be a little bit tighter on our shapes than we have done before when we've only got one background clip and one foreground clip. And the reasons for this will be visible to you very, very shortly. And that's not a metaphorical visible, that's an actual, you'll be able to see it. Cool, and the same thing with our seagull track here as well. So let's come in, expand this out so it now covers our shadow as well. And I'm going to give this a bit of an edge softness as well. So just come up here, choose the edge only. Actually, it's probably best to take 3 seconds just to discuss what these arrows are doing here. So whenever we're using the pick tool here, we've got some sort of sub commands going on down here. Small white arrow with a B stands for both, so that when we move something, we're going to move both the inside edge, which is the hard edge here, and the soft edge area here. So that's the default setting, and that's the one you use it in most of the time. The I stands for the inner, so it's only moving now the inner section here and leaving the edge unaffected. The edge, or the E, moves the edge only. And the A stands for any, which means we can move either the edge if we click and drag on that, or the inner if we click and drag on that. But for now we're going to move us into edge just to create a bit of softness going on here. There we go, nothing too major. Cool, so we now defined our background with our two shapes, our sky track and our railings track, and we've defined our foreground object that we want to remove. So let's come in to our remove tab. Let's turn the mats off, turn our overlays off as well here, and let's just take a little look here. Search range 0 to 95. Yeah, okay, we'll our range isn't going to be that high, but we'll leave it there to begin with. Frames before and frames after, again, I'm going to bring this down quite substantially. Illumination model, none. Dissolve width 0. None of these other things turned on, just for the first round, just so we can have a look and see what actually happens. Okay, interesting. So this is really pointing to a big problem that we have with this particular clip. We just scrub it through a little bit here. There's really no information that we can see in the background for Mocha Pro to kind of help us out with. So it's really limited what remove can actually do just with these settings down here. Now let's turn the overlays off a second. I'm going to turn flood fill on here just to show you flood fill. So what flood fill does is it attempts to fill in as much information as it can from other frames, But if it can't do that, it then will flood it with a colour. So let's turn the 3D compensation on, see if that helps. It's not going to help. So the 3D compensation is really only useful when we have a object that we want to remove that isn't planar. So in this case, the seagull does have a little bit of shape around it, but it's far enough away that the object still remains planar. So a good example of this would be maybe a tattoo on an arm. If you've got extreme close up of a tattoo on an arm, the movement of that is not necessarily going to be planar, especially if the arm is twisting. So that's where the 3D compensation will certainly come in helpful. So we're basically stuck unless we bring in clean plates. So I'm going to bring in some clean plates that I have created up. So we saw in the last exercise how we could create a clean plate directly within Mocha Pro just by taking another frame. But here I'm going to come in, go to import, select, and then I'm going to select my 4 TIFF files here, 001, 020, 038 and 095. Okay. And this will give me a list of the frame numbers now. And if I select any of these frame numbers, I can preview these here just to make sure that I've got the right frame selected. If I don't, I can just come in, change that there, and test it out there. You can see that really isn't right. So let's go back to that one there, and it takes the frame number from the file name. There we go. Cool. So this is why it was really important that I had my frame offset set to 0 here, because the clean plates were generated from frame exports that started at 0. Let's not change any of the other stuff here, and let's just hit render now. And you can see that's given us a much better remove. Not perfect, far from it. Far from it. We've still got a bit of stuff going on down here, but it's a lot better. Let's track it forwards another couple of frames. I want to show you something else. Let's even start at frame 0 as well. Let's see what happens when I render frame 0 out. There we go. See, that's looking a lot better, but there's still something not quite right in here. What's happening at the moment is that Mocha Pro is still trying to grab in data from other frames if it can do. Now, we've already established that in this particular shot, that's not a smart idea. That's actually giving us a worse result than we otherwise would have, because it can't find that data and can't bring it in. But our clean plate's looking great. So we've got another option down here, which is use clean plates exclusively. So if I turn that on, come back to frame 1 again, turn that on, hit render on that, you can see it's now only using the clean plates. Let's render that forward, see what's happening. So all of that rubbish that we had floating on down here has now disappeared. We've got some other problems coming on here, mainly because our shape isn't exactly the way it should be. So we can always extend that out. But actually there's a bigger problem going on. If you look here in the reflections. So what's happening at the moment is that our different masks, let's turn our overlays back on and turn my seagull off for a second, is that our various masks here aren't matching up with the planar movement of the actual shot. So we've got one big background here for the sky, and one little one here for the railing. That's fine. Those are looking pretty good. The problem comes with this reflection here. So this isn't working properly. So that's why we're getting a bit of drift going on down here. Really what we need to do is create another shape and track that in that's going to match the reflection down here a lot better. So let's come back into our track here and let's do that. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, or not. So let's create two shapes. Make sure I'm set to both there. There we go. And add another X-spline here. Bring that in. All right, so if I try to track this, that would actually be really quite tricky to do, because tracking reflections, especially when there's so little difference, let's turn that, there's so little difference really between the reflection here and the sky behind it, that what would end up happening is that Mocha would end up tracking the sky again. So what I'm going to do now, let's take us back to our clean plate here. Cool. What I'm going to do now is actually link this reflections track to one of our previous tracks that we've got, and I'm going to try and find the one that I have a known quantity about, which is going to be the seagull here. So I'm going to come and link this to my seagull track, and you can see that automatically this now shows up blue, which means it's tracked. If it's tracked, it means it's going to be used as part of the remove calculations. But let's play it through. It slips. It still slips because of course the reflections here are reflecting. What are they reflecting? They're probably reflecting some of the posts are out here somewhere, something that we actually can't see, or maybe even this background post over here. But basically the plane of movement of the reflections here is not the same as the movement of the seagull. It's taking out most of the camera movement, but it's not 100% accurate. So we're going to need to come in here and we're going to need to change this up a little bit. So let's come in, let's just transform this. Let's undo that a couple of times, because you know what I've done? I've left that in Uber key mode. What actually I want to do is keyframe it up. I was so busy talking that I forgot to take myself out of Uber key mode, which is usually the first thing that I do when I'm finished with what I need to use that key for, because it can, if you're not careful, you can end up getting yourself into a whole load of trouble because of it. So I'm holding down the Q key to do transform across the both splines. Let's add one more keyframe just there. And that's looking all right. So let's bring this reflections track underneath the seagull track so that now it's sitting properly in the order. So now we've got sky track at the back, railings track after that, then reflections, then seagull. Turn our seagull back on, back into our remove, come in here, just render this out again. and it's still not perfect, but it's a whole lot nicer than it was. Still a little bit of slip going on there, but you know what? If we want to get rid of that, probably the easiest way to do that is just to paint out another clean plate, add another clean plate in there, and sort it out like that. We could also help a little bit by maybe adding a bit of randomness to our render, just to sort of mix things up a little bit, just to take off focus a little bit there. Now I'm going to leave this shot right here because I've gone through the things that I really wanted to cover, but I would recommend actually taking this shot and trying to do the whole thing, because this is actually a very challenging shot to do. Now, one of the things that I would say is that getting this shot 100% accurate is going to be really, really time consuming, and a lot of the time it's not absolutely necessary to get things 100% accurate. All you're aiming to do is to not draw the eye over to a certain point. So, you know, by taking away the seagull, we're hopefully drawing the eye over here a bit more to our subject, rather than distracting it with the seagull. And so long as our effect here isn't more distracting than what's going on in the main part of the footage, then, you know, that's fine. It's only when the work that we're trying to do here becomes distracting that we still need to work on it and keep building up the quality of there, because there is obviously, you know, that whole balance between quality and time. You could spend forever trying to get something 100% perfect when all you need it to be is, you know, 90% perfect or 80% perfect. Really think of that as you're approaching this shot, and I hope you enjoy a challenge. So in the next exercise, we're going to look at the final module that we haven't taken a look at yet, and that is the insert module. So come right back.